As far as the Western Shoshones being here in this valley, they've always been here from forever, I guess. Our stories don't tell us coming here from any place. It tells us that as the Creator went by, He planted His children. We've heard that from the time that we were little. It's a Western Shoshone land. It's your Earth Mother. She provides for you, you know.
Carrie, Dan, and her sister Mary live in an area called Crescent Valley, which is in Nevada. They've lived in that land for generations and generations for what's called time immemorial.
Not bad. Just buckaroo brown.
The reason we called this press conference is to confirm title in over 60 million acres of land that belongs to the Western Shoshone Indian Nation. The history of this case goes back to 1863 when the United States government signed a treaty with the Western Shoshone Nation, which is called the Treaty of Ruby Valley. The United States recognized that title in this land is owned by the Western Shoshone Nation.
All right, we're all done going to eat now. That's yours.
The Dans were fortunate enough that their father had homesteaded this property and had enough foresight to actually get private property. But you got to understand that in the West, your base property is worthless without the ability to use the surrounding range. So that's where the dispute is. This valley, the mountains around here, that's all part of the traditional range of the Dan family.
Up to 1973, you know, we never had problems with our neighbors. I think we have coexisted peacefully with them. And that was what the Treaty of Ruby Valley was about. It's called peace and friendship.
The treaty is essentially an agreement on the part of the Western Shoshone to share their homelands. Now, in the years following the treaty, the U.S. government began to treat these lands as belonging to the U.S. and not the Western Shoshone.
But one of the things I think is really important for people to understand that you're supposed to share. You share the earth because the earth is common. We hold that in common with all life.
In 1974, the United States sued Mary and Carrie Dan for trespass. They based their suit on a stipulation by the Indian Claims Commission, a federal agency, that stated in 1962 the Western Shoshone had lost its land to the United States by gradual encroachment.
You better see that it's straight, Mary.
The Western Shoshone were not permitted to testify, and the Treaty of Ruby Valley was never mentioned.
Good enough. Are you sure? Are you sure?
So, the U.S. government in 1979 claimed that the Shoshone people had lost title to their land through gradual encroachment of U.S. settlers and were entitled to $26 million for the 24 million acres of their Aboriginal territory.
All except for that one post on that, or what kind of eyes you got, but looks straight to me. It's a post, all right.
Now, when Mary and Carrie Dan made it to the Supreme Court, they wanted to talk about how this title was legally transferred from the Shoshone to the U.S. The Supreme Court looked at the fact that the Secretary of Interior had accepted this award on their behalf and said, well, it's clear that the Shoshone people have been paid, therefore they have no right to come before this court and argue that they have title to these lands.
Good enough.
So, and you have the government taking money out of one pocket and putting it into another pocket and stating that justice has been done and the Shoshone people have spoken.
The land is very important to us. It is very sacred to the Western Shoshone people. It represents life, and to take our land is to take our life. And I find it quite appalling that a country like the United States is legitimizing the theft of the Western Shoshone land. I look at that as spiritual genocide against the Western Shoshone people that believe the earth is its mother. It's a death that nobody will ever understand. It's a spiritual death. Grandma always had horses, quite a bit of horses. And me and Mary always worked with horses. Grandmother told us that when she went to the spirit world, that we would take her animals over. And that's how we inherited a lot of these horses.
The BLM sees the actions of Mary and Carrie Dan to be a direct challenge to the BLM's authority to control these lands. They claim that these animals are overgrazing.
And we weren't overgrazing. You go out here and look at the land that we used for our animals, and yet you go 10 miles that way, 10 miles that way, 10 miles that way, and 10 miles that way. You're going to find the same condition. The overgrazing is not the issue. The issue is the land. They want the resources. They want the resources.
Last year, the Bureau of Land Management, which is the BLM, came in and confiscated over 500 head of horses and took over 200 head of cattle from their land.
Actually, there's been 3 attempts on the horses and 2 on the cows. The first roundup they did of horses was in '91. The following November of 1992, they came in with force and helicopters for almost a week, in which they confiscated over 200 horses. Last September, around 4:15, 4:30 in the morning, we see off on the horizon all these lines of headlights coming, as well as supporting semis, fuel trucks, helicopters. And it's just dozens and dozens of armed agents, bulletproof vests, automatic pistols. It's a terrifying situation. They were really belligerent.
This is conversation being taped. If you do not want to be taped, do not say anything.
Don't get nervous.
Here the government was, my own government, coming in heavily armed to take people's sustenance from them.
It's exactly what you're doing here. You're stripping us of our dignity. And I think that's wrong. I think that's totally wrong.
And now this very same government, who ostensibly has a treaty of peace and friendship with this people, comes in here at gunpoint to take their animals.
I demand for you to show us, your superiors, or whoever it is, to show us documentation of Western Shoshone land transfer to the United States of America. And when you do that, then you have that authority to block us.
And then a few months later, the United States comes back out and takes over 400 head of horses. Horses that had lived on these lands for as long as the Dan family can remember.
Many of these horses had just had babies or were carrying babies. It's cold, there's less food out there in the wintertime, and that was made clear to the BLM that this is not the time you should come and do a roundup. You're going to lose horses. The BLM went ahead anyway, and the sad result has been horses have died, horses have starved, babies have died, all because the BLM had this overwhelming need to get these horses off the range.
Some of the horses that the BLM captured were boarded in areas without adequate food. Fenced in and unable to forage for themselves, many died of starvation.
Mary and Carrie Dan went from being ranchers, mothers, aunties, to being forced into being human rights activists because the United States government wouldn't leave them alone. It was really just a struggle to maintain their home because they're indigenous people who believe in their traditional ways and believe that they have a responsibility to protect their lands and their ways for their future generations.
Now you may ask yourself, why would the United States government come in and raid a ranch that's owned and operated by two Western Shoshone grandmothers that have lived there in this land since time immemorial? Well, as it turns out, their ranch in Crescent Valley sits atop one of the largest gold finds in the history of the United States.
Just 2 or 3 months after the horse roundup in February of 2003, Cortez Gold, it was front page, top fold of the local paper, striking gold, all in big gold letters. And Cortez was claiming that it had found one of the most significant deposits of gold. Where? Right there where those animals had been removed. If you want to look at degradation of the range, go look over the top of this mountain down into those roads that the mine's been putting in to do their exploration. Or go look into one of these pits. Or go look at all the water they're pumping. And yet, that's not considered degradation of the range? Shoshone land right now is the second largest gold producing area in the world. We've got all of the biggest companies. We've got Barrick, and we've got Newmont, which is the world's largest mining company, and we've got Placer Dome, Kennecott. I mean, just you look down a list of who's who in gold companies, and they're here. Who stands to gain? Follow the money. Who benefits? Horse people don't benefit. BLM doesn't benefit. The Shoshone don't benefit. Does the general public benefit? No. It's taxpayer money. Who benefits? Whoever's going to make money if this whole Shoshone title issue is cleared up.
The gold we have out here is microscopic, but to extract it from the rock, the industry developed this process where they, dig the earth out, crush it down, and then leach it with cyanide. And that separates the gold from the rock. Then they take the rock that's left and they make these huge tailings piles. This microscopic gold is underneath the water table. So they're having to pump the water out to get to the earth underneath. The mines are pumping anywhere from 20,000 gallons of water per minute to 70,000 gallons of water per minute for one mine alone, every day, 365 days a year.
They're pumping this virgin water out so that we as human beings can enjoy wearing gold. Ladies and gentlemen, you are killing the earth. The earth is dying because of the way people act. You as consumers, they as producers of gold. And we as indigenous people, we're yelling, stop that, you're killing our mother. Who's going to hear us? Stop that, you're killing the earth. You're killing the mother of all life, for God's sakes. Can't you wake up and listen to what we're saying to you? And let us treat this earth with tender love and care, because it is our only mother.
The struggle has been for Western Shoshone land rights. It's always been Western Shoshone land rights. To a traditional indigenous person, land means life. All the things that you have, they all come from this earth. Today they call those things resources. Today those resources are taken in the name of economy, name of money. Who does that? Multinational corporations. They don't care. They're not going to be here tomorrow. And what do these companies care about the children of these children? They don't care. Because they'll be gone. Soon as they take the resources out, they will be gone.
Let's give honor to our sisters that have stood and fought long and hard and is still fighting. Because as long as we have breath, there is still hope for us. And that's why we're here today. That's why I'm here. To support my sisters that have been on the battlefield for so long.
80% of the gold goes into jewelry. 80%. Anytime you men buy gold for your wives, you think about that. The destruction that's happening to the earth in the name of gold.
On Earth Day, April 22nd, 2005, Mary Dan died in an accident on the Dan Ranch. She'd been out repairing fences. She died as she lived, with her boots on and hay in her pockets. Carrie Dan said Mary would not want her death to interrupt the struggle to regain their land rights and human rights. The following year, the Western Shoshone renewed their grievances with the United Nations.
I was involved in the UN CERD presentation. What CERD stands for is the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And that's a treaty body set up under the United Nations system that the United States signed and ratified in 1993, I believe.
We think the Shoshone people have legitimate grievances. There's an old Roman law, I believe, where there's a wrong, there must be a remedy. And no country, no matter how great or progressive it is a perfect society. There are always elements of ethnic and other kinds of racism or discrimination, and we bring the attention of the party to remedies in terms of the obligations they have voluntarily assumed under the convention.
And they rendered a full, formal, urgent action decision against the United States, urging that the United States immediately freeze, desist, and stop from any further actions against the Western Shoshone people, any further legislative efforts to privatize their lands, and to immediately initiate dialogue with the Western Shoshone. When you say the United Nations has condemned U.S. behavior against the Western Shoshone, that means something to people when they pick up the paper and read it.
Hello, Charlie, little Julie.
Came home finally
After we heard the decision from the third, I was very pleased about it, very happy about it.
You got a copy of the decision?
Yes.
Did it say what you wanted to say?
Yes. Okay. Today, in a historical and strongly worded decision by the United Nations Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination, third, the United States was urged to freeze, desist, and stop action being taken or threatened to be taken against Shoshone peoples.
I just hope that, that we'll be able to work with the United States to go forward on something that's favorable towards the indigenous peoples of America.
So, as what Uncle said yesterday, too. Julie, he was so happy.
He was?
Yeah.
About this? Good.
He really was. He told Oki, he says, well, we can go dancing tonight. It's about time the truth come out. It's about time truth come out.
The Western Shoshone case is a very important case for the indigenous movement worldwide, and the Dan sisters in particular have been very inspirational. They've won the moral battle. The U.S. has its legal maneuverings that it can make within its own domestic system, but when it comes to judging these actions against fundamental human rights standards, the Dans and the Western Shoshone people are the ones who are right.
This year, the Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination confirmed the Inter-American Commission's finding and issued a full decision under their early warning and urgent action procedures. We were very pleased that these bodies have recognized the wrongs that the government is committing against our people and other indigenous people. I want to thank you for listening to this little old lady. Thank you very much.
Are we ready to dedicate ourselves to the next generations to come? Or are we ready just to, accept things as they are and the hell with tomorrow? The hell with the future generations? And that is one of the reasons why I try so hard to protect the rights of the indigenous peoples all over the world, because they're the one that's still related to the earth, they're still close to the earth, and they do care.
Put a saddle on you and ride you, huh?
I will only hope history of this nation will bring out in the open the struggles that we have had against the United States in order for us to find a little bit of peace, a little bit of justice, a little bit of humanity, and a little bit of morality in the government of the United States of America.
No, hey, no, hey, no, hi, oh, God, now we are.